Hello, everybody, and welcome to an interesting stream we got today. You're not sure maybe what console to get, or you already got one. Most likely everybody, well, PlayStation people got some tonight. We'll talk about that maybe. But today I have three lovely guests that are all gamers that have been kind of keeping up with stuff, whether they're fans or researchers. And we're going to narrow down for you today what's the key differences between Series S and X Xboxes and the two different models of the PlayStation 5. First off, I got Josh with me today from Quest Mode. We did a game nominations thing and whatnot. Josh, did you get a PS5 last night?
I was lucky enough to get a pre-order. Yeah, it was a bit of a race. I was glued to Twitter, probably like everybody. I saw a receipt from GameStop. Someone said they got a pre-order at a GameStop in person. So I got in my car, rushed down to my local GameStop, and I got one. I was very lucky because I know not everybody or not very many people were in that position.
You got it in person though. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, like old-fashioned. You know, like if you're like looking behind me, I go physical. So that was kind of fitting that I went
physical all the way, dude. Physical all the way.
Speaking of which, DB, new guest to the channel, and we have kind of spitballed off of each other for a while. It's so good to finally be in a room. Fellow geek, you get a PS5 last night?
Well, funny enough, my community know this, but I work in GameStop, so I was pretty much solidified getting one, so it's all good.
That's funny. So you're good. And Kids Move, you're actually new to me. I've recently just discovered Kids Move, and I wanted like a fellow potential Xbox person. I don't know, you seem like an all-around great gamer to me, so it's good to have you on. What was your situation, PS5 last night? Or are you waiting out for Xbox? What are you doing?
No, I did. As an Xbox guy, no, I was trying to be that first person, but I kind of had like a dummy moment because I actually believed the whole like, pre-orders go live on this day. So I didn't think. What happened was I was watching the show at work I was sneaking and watching it, and I was like, all right. Once I got home, there's a GameStop on my way from home, and I see a line, and I'm like, well, they're all getting turned away because pre-orders aren't live. So I just kept driving home. I get home, and I look at Twitter, and pre-orders are live, so I tried to call GameStop. They wouldn't pick up because they were busy, and they closed. They have COVID hours, so they closed like early. It was over at like 8 o'clock, and then I tried to do it online, and I had no luck. And then I had the little surprise Walmart second round at 9 p.m. yesterday one. Had it in my cart, but the checkout kept freezing on me. And by the time it did go through, it was out of stock. So
man, sucks, dude.
So, and it's interesting because I think a neat conversation today, because like I said, this is for folks that they might be on the fence, or maybe they already know what they're getting, but are just curious about the differences. I feel like all three of you are trying to get both boxes. Is that correct, would you say?
For sure.
I see Josh and DB. I don't know about Smooth. You're attempting to get both, it seems like, but...
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel comfortable like that. I'll be able to get like an Xbox for sure, but I would like to try to get a launch. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I would like
and
that.
For me,
that
so like this is interesting because for me, I'm like, I feel like I only want one because yes, I'm broke as a joke, but also because of like just so many choices, so much time. So maybe through this, not only somebody might decide, but also help me decide. We'll see. But yeah, we're gonna break down 5 different categories that games is definitely like probably a majority thing that people talk about, which we're gonna hit. But what is good things about the hardware?
I apologize. They're saying there's an echo every time I speak. I just want to make sure like if I'm coming in two feeds or
let's see.
I don't know if it's my headphones, but I'll turn them down, my volume down.
I'm not hearing an echo on my end, but I just messed with something that might do something else smooth.
Hello.
How was that, Chad? Is he okay?
I just listened to it on the YouTube feeds. It doesn't sound like there's
okay. Okay, somebody said better. Somebody said it's gone. Okay.
It's gone. It's gone.
All right,
it's
awesome,
gone.
cool.
All good.
Thank you, chat. Thank you guys so much. That's why we do a live stream, because you get to catch bloopers and you get to fix anything that's going on. So, without further ado, though, I want to get into our first thingy. My video just went away. We're good. I want to get into our first kind of category here. That is the hardware. Hardware is something that some might not care about, but it is something to know about each of these systems. And to kind of sum up, in my opinion, and Josh here from Quest Mode has a great preview on the PlayStation 5 breaking this stuff down, but because people will be right back. But pretty much the summary, at least through my eyes, the number one thing in these systems is potentially the Series X has, I mean, not necessarily potentially, but sort of, I'm sure people might argue this, has kind of a bit stronger CPU and GPU, whereas the PlayStation 5 has a stronger SSD. So one might be able to secure that 4K 60 frame promise thing a bit easier. The other one will have 2 seconds quicker loading. I don't know if, Josh, you did a great preview on this on Quest Mode with the PlayStation 5. What's kind of a comment on that and what you potentially would prefer or argue?
I mean, so from my video, I know the PlayStation 5 much better than the Xbox, but from my understanding, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like the SSD in the PlayStation 5 is about twice as fast as the Xbox Series X and Series S. They have more or less the same SSD. And the CPU and GPU run at different clock speeds in both. They're not like apples to apples. And the Xbox runs at more teraflops. I think it's 12 teraflops for the Xbox and 10.26 for the PlayStation. So, I mean, you pretty much hit it, but they both will be able to do certain things. I think there'll be a lot of, flame wars out there about this stuff, but I don't think the performance is going to be all that different, if at all. I mean, you're going to have a really trained eye to tell that the Xbox is cranking out more pixels than the PlayStation.
Or on the other side of it, maybe, you have trained eye for Xbox, or you just can't stand waiting another 2 seconds on the PlayStation side.
Yeah, I don't think that from my understanding, I think the Xbox can output or can stream, I guess, 5 gigabytes a second, I think, and the PlayStation is at 9 gigabytes a second.
4.8 I think compressed, or and then 2.4 uncompressed. I'm probably saying it backwards.
No,
Xbox.
Yeah, it's more compressed and less uncompressed, but but
smooth.
That'll definitely make for faster load times on both systems.
Totally.
But you're talking about seconds. You're going to be waiting maybe a second longer on Xbox.
Yeah. Smooth, I saw you had a little bit, I thought I saw it anyways, a little face when I mentioned this. Was there something that came up, or?
Oh, the SSD, no, because I've spent months, being told what the SSD of the PS5 can do beyond load time. So that's why it just reminded me back to just some of the fanboy arguments I was involved in. So, but no, I mean, I feel like how I look at it is that both the consoles have SSDs. It's something none of the previous consoles had. So they're both, to me, a paradigm, shift in terms of storage speed, and it's it's something console gamers aren't used to. We've never experienced it. Even when we could kind of hijack our Xbox with SSDs, it never performed as it should. It was just a faster storage, but it didn't make that much of a difference. Now these are proper SSDs, and it's the first time our consoles have had that. So I feel the fact that alone for it being a SSD over a standard RPM drive is going to be a massive upgrade. So whenever, I know a lot of people want to compare the speeds being 2 times faster or the percentages, I don't buy into all that, because they have their ways in optimizing. I know Xbox have this the velocity architecture they've been talking up, and a way to sort of either match, or even, don't quote me on this, or even exceed the speeds of what PlayStation said that they're going to be able to do. So, but on paper, PlayStation wins, because when you look at raw numbers, that's the only thing you can just kind of get from that, is that they win on that the faster loads. I don't know what else the SSD is going to be able to do. A lot of people talk about like asset streaming.
See, what I find funny is that you're talking a lot about this SSD, but not about like the slight bit more processing that the Xbox is doing for the visuals or whatever. But but it's because it's the most noticeable gap. So
it's the biggest that is the biggest gap. A lot of things about the with the Xbox, and the thing that still confuses me about the PlayStation, and I don't want to move off subject, is that when you're
I want to get DB's
specs,
words here. So,
oh yeah, go ahead.
Are you sure? I mean, like, if there's a close statement,
because I think we're gonna end up falling back to where I was leading it. So
okay,
go ahead.
Okay,
yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So DB, if you have any comments on that, go for it. But I also kind of want to let you open the floor here on something. Xbox, because I know like you're like me, or we just like to geek out about stuff, you know, and then sometimes maybe not get too technical. But Xbox has confirmed something called Quick Resume. That's for some reason PlayStation hasn't confirmed. I don't know if all you guys have a reaction to that, even though it should easily be able to do it. But if you don't know what Quick Resume is, it's where you can bounce back and forth between a bunch of games and they're just continuously going.
Yeah.
Whereas PlayStation has got VR, something that Xbox isn't doing for some reason, and that haptic controller. Is there kind of like either of those two sides that appeals to you, DB?
I mean, the quick resume thing does appeal to me because I'd like to be able to switch to and from different games quite rapidly. And I think that feature would be awesome for people that really like to kind of switch it up, especially when it comes to like playing multiple games at one time. Because like me, I don't just buy one game. When games are coming out in the same week, I usually buy multiple games. And if I'm just playing the one game, I don't usually switch to and from because it's too much effort. So having that seamless gameplay is going to be pretty interesting and really, really useful, I think. I think what PlayStation are doing when it comes to like haptic feedback in their DualSense controllers, I don't think is anything to praise yet until we actually get those controllers in our hands. And once that happens, I'm sure what they're saying, obviously we're going to experience that firsthand, and I'm looking forward to that for sure. But like I said, until we fully experience that, I can't really comment on that too much, but I am looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Which is a lot. Like there's a lot that seems to be a trend where it's just like, I can't wait to see that in action kind of a thing.
Yeah.
For me, I keep telling people like, I'm kind of all about power. I do like that the Xbox is the more powerful system and everything, and I love that they confirm Quick Resume. I don't understand why PlayStation hasn't confirmed that they can do that yet. They'll probably show something soon. But the only thing that just kind of has me like, why doesn't Xbox have that is PSVR? Like, I think that's an under detail that isn't super mainstream, but it is something that Xbox doesn't have, you know? So it's really, this I thought could just be broken down as such a simple thing as just one's faster, one's more powerful. But then I kind of think about these other little things. I'm just like, maybe it's actually a pick and choose kind of a situation if you care about that stuff.
Yeah.
So if there's any other comments somebody wants to jab in on that before we go to the next thing.
The only thing, and this goes back a little bit, is we didn't really hit on this with the SSD, is that the PlayStation's SSD is 825 gigabytes, where the Series X has a full terabyte. So
thank you for
get
bringing
like
that
a
up.
whole
I totally
extra
forgot
game
about that. Yeah.
That you can install on your SSD, and that is actually a bit. And with this Series S, it's 512 gigabytes. But if you're going Series X versus the PlayStation 5, there is a difference.
Yeah.
I believe Jason Ronalds, project manager of like behind the Series X and S, I believe he confirmed that like games for the Series S are 30% smaller than the Series X in terms, because there's assets they don't really have to download, I guess, for like a resolution and stuff. But
I believe
he said
that because games are getting smaller. You look at Doom Eternal compared to Doom 2016, and for some reason Doom Eternal's smaller when it's got a lot more content. Same goes for Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Blind Force. Like, yeah. I'm really glad you brought up the memory thing, because that's a really important thing that I meant to bring up, because they have two very different ways of expanding memory that are going to be stupid expensive. I'm calling it. They're both going to be stupid expensive.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not sure. Like, I do kind of like kind of a gimmicky thing. I do like that the Xbox One is like that classic memory card. That is kind of cool. I kind of like that. I'm a little bit of a sucker for that. But but we'll see. Like, and for the PlayStation one, it has to be a card that runs as fast as its SSD, which might make those a bit more expensive than the Xbox ones. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's if you want to play PlayStation 5 games off
Correct.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to basically meet the same specs as the one inside the PS5.
Yeah. I know people want us to get to the games, so let's keep moving onwards. We'll get to the games in a moment, but I want to talk a moment that has to do with the games and also kind of the hardware, kind of transitioning. Backwards compatibility. So we all want to move on to the future and stuff and play the newer games and utilize that hardware, but let's be real, for the first year, we're not going to really get much of that, at least maybe a bit, but I don't think a lot. So I think a lot of people would consider backwards compatibility a really important point. And, you get these systems, you might want to play old games and not just let go of them. And this is a situation I think is actually recently got very clarified, because before it was all Xbox kind of, because we can play everything that the one can play at launch, which is bonkers. Well, actually, I don't know. They say that's the goal, but I don't know if they said firmly.
There's some Kinect games that won't work. Remember the Xbox
Kinect
One
games
during
won't
this.
work. PSVR games will work on the PlayStation, but Kinect games won't work on the Xbox.
That's actually what decided it for me when they announced that. I was like, I'm going PS5 all the
way. But yeah, this was at first kind of a complete one-way street, but then last night, or not last night, whatever, PlayStation night was, they were like, oh, we actually tested 99% of our PlayStation 4 games can play on PlayStation 5. We're going to bring some of them at launch. Eventually, though, 99% will be great. But it's kind of a bit vague, and also that is just the PS4 games. So, Smooth, I'll let you start with this one. What do you think about the backwards compatibility situation, and just in terms of the games? And also, one more point, you can use your Series X controller on the one if you would like to. And you could use a one controller on the Series X. PlayStation, you have to use a PlayStation 5 controller to play PlayStation 5 games. You cannot use a PS4 game or controller to play PS5 games. Smooth, comments.
Yeah, couple things. We all know that Xbox, I think they invested over, $100 million in R&D for their controller for the Xbox One.
Wow.
So it was best they stick with it in minor adjustments. If it's not broke, don't fix it. They took that approach. Yeah. I appreciate it. And you got to think about, remember, there was a joke on Xbox. They got more controllers than games of all those variants of controllers that they've released. And a lot of people got 6, 7 controllers. Imagine not being able to bring that with you with your Xbox Series X. It will just be I got to put all these controllers in the basement. I have a ton of controllers behind me, actually. And I plan on, this is my favorite controller. I have the Cyberpunk controller that I'm not using until Cyberpunk. And I purposely held off.
That's dedication, I have to say. That's awesome.
Yeah. I purposely held off from buying the Elite Series 2 until the next gen Xbox came out. So I wanted to pair that with the console. But yeah, it's awesome. I've had the Duke controller, which works good with the Xbox One. It's crazy to know that all those controllers will work for whether I'm playing an Xbox One game or an Xbox Series game or an Xbox 360 or an OG Xbox game.
That is pretty crazy.
It's the closest you can get to it. You can buy a Duke controller and play those OG Xbox games. Halo, Halo's been released several times, but games like Fusion Frenzy, Crimson Skies, and all that stuff. So however, I'm a big advocate for backwards compatibility because it's a feature over the years. It's been so inconsistent. At one point it was expected with the early Nintendo and PlayStation days, and then it kind of went away. And then now Xbox bought it back, but they did it in such a different way that it kind of makes me appreciate it. So I never owned the OG Xbox. I played and beat Halo because I had a cousin who had Xbox, and I would go there every week, and then we would do all-nighters. So that's my limited experience. Now I can go back and experience the catalog that they got. I've already purchased games like Black, Dead to Rights, and Ninja Gaiden, and all that stuff. So, and the crazy thing about it, a lot of these games are actually like enhanced on the Xbox.
Yeah, that's
One.
another
They
point that
look
they'll
better.
be enhancing some of these games. For
Yes.
the Series X will, but then the Series
Yeah.
S still gives some enhancements, but yeah.
Yes. So like I've been going back. I played recently Alice in Wonderland. I'm currently trying to replay Peter Jackson's King Kong.
I saw
which-
that, yeah.
yeah. So it's a thing that I appreciate very much, only because with COVID and all this stuff, right? And it's kind of impacted everything. So one has to think, like, there's going to be a drought somewhere in 2021. Because you got to think about the games that were originally targeting.
By a
2020.
drought, you mean like a slowdown of releasing
of
titles
game
potentially?
releases.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, and once you burn through like the hype of the launch games and some of the multiplayer games, I feel like there's going to be a slow release, and then now I can go back and try out those 360 games that I didn't get to play. Some of my backlog on Xbox One that came out, because there's a window right now. I'm not buying games until Series X and PS5. I just kind of like, what, I'm in casual mode. So I don't know. It keeps me busy. I have so many games because of backwards compatible, and it's crazy that I had a gamer tag ever since November of 2005, right? So everything that I bought digital, ever since they initialized this backwards compatible program, it find games that I purchased all those years ago, and I can just go and install them. Which is awesome.
I want to jump in here and let somebody else go. But I agree. I think it's a good case. DB, I think you have a neat story here. I saw on your Twitter today, I get to experience Gears 5 on the Series X.
Yeah.
And that's
that's
a
the beauty
neat
of it. Yeah, exactly.
And you've been experiencing all these Xbox stuff. So what's an interesting note from you?
It's only been 7-8 months since I've been introduced to the world of Xbox completely. So learning everything about Xbox in, I would like to say, a short period of time has been quite crazy. But I loved it. I loved every experience. I have the Xbox One, and I have the OG Xbox right beside me here on my setup. That's how much Xbox actually means to me now. And I love what Xbox is doing. Everything that I've played in Xbox, I've played Gears of War, all the Halo games, Ori and the Blind Forest, and some really, really good titles as well. And what they've done with like backwards compatibility and stuff, I love having that access. And having the access to like literally every game that has come out. It's insane. I mean, I feel like the options are endless with Xbox, and that's why I think it's such a great platform to play on.
Yeah, and I love the note of like even just like over 500 360 titles too. That's just really cool. Josh, you probably have comments on this, but I also am curious to swing in some PlayStation stuff here. What did you think of this news of like 99% of stuff is playable? And we're going to get into services in a moment that, the PlayStation Plus collection or whatever. But just, what do you got comments on Xbox, but also like on the PlayStation side of things? What do you think?
Well, on Xbox, I think they've done a fantastic job, with their backwards compatibility and just compatibility overall. You mentioned the controllers, like that's actually a huge benefit if you plan. I don't know how much like couch co-op is going to be going on next gen, but if you're the type of player that plays multiplayer in your house, like that's $70 every controller you buy for PlayStation, whereas you can just plug in your old ones for Xbox. So that's awesome. And then like on the backwards compatibility, I wish PlayStation would invest more in it, but I get the feeling that gamers like us are a pretty small minority. I feel like the majority of people who game, they might say that they like backwards compatibility, but I'll bet you most people who even say that get their PlayStation and then they never pop in a PlayStation 3 or if they have an Xbox One, they'll probably never play an old game. But like for me, like I literally played this year Arkham Origins on my PlayStation 3, and when I decided I wanted to play that, I had to hook up my PlayStation 3 and I guess I could have downloaded it.
That's what I did for Metal Gear Solid 1. Yep.
Yeah. So it's awesome. And then I was like, I want to play Splinter Cell. I just hop onto the store on my Xbox One and just download it. I do have to buy it. It's not on Game Pass, but
yeah.
So
which like currently PlayStation has some neat stuff with that too. You could buy digital like backwards compatibility, but just this PS5 era, you got to wonder if, through PlayStation Now or through their digital downloads, will those carry over? It's because we're entering a digital era, but In my opinion, I don't know if anybody wants to debate this. In my opinion, I think Xbox kind of has this one in the bag until we know what that 99% comment actually means, because for now it's kind of vague. So and the controller business.
I am curious to see, just testing out, some PS4 games, popping them in, and if they really hit the mark, they said if like literally 99% of games from the PS4 library work, then I think that's definitely good enough on the PS4 front. Totally. It would still be nice to have the older generations there too, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think Sony is going to implement that ever, to be honest, like PS3, 2, and 1.
And I briefly mentioned this, but no Kinect, but there is PSVR, so that's cool. They said PSVR will be a thing. Maybe that Astro Bot Playground will be able to utilize that a bit more, so that's cool. We'll see. People have to buy a new VR set. They probably will if they want like a somewhat upgraded experience. We'll see.
Yeah.
But guys, let's get into what a lot of people want to talk about. Let's talk about the games. We've been talking about the hardware. I see like a smile. There was a little smile on DV's face. Just
I love games, man.
I know. No, that's the main thing that a lot of people go to these consoles for. And we'll talk about like how these games can be accessed in this next section. But I more so specifically kind of want to talk about, okay, these hardwares, like one is fast, one's powerful, one's can play a lot of previous games, which is great, and the other one's bringing VR or whatever. But in terms of like what is coming, what do each of these guys have to offer in terms of what you're going to spend 95% of your time with these consoles? I want to note that it's a really awesome note how far Xbox has come. They're really trying. And I think that deserves to be recognized, because I'm sure, I actually don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people have a kind of like a lean in this category. But I just want to recognize, like currently PlayStation has 13 studios. Xbox has 15. So that's pretty cool. And they've been trying to make that effort the past 2 years. And they got a lot of studios. However, the way I kind of wrote this down on a sheet I have is that PlayStation just, at least to me, if anybody wants to disagree with this, go for it. They seem like they have a much strong, I don't know if I want to use a stronger catalog, but they have much more iconic titles. Even like Horizon Zero Dawn, which Josh, I know you can gush all day about. That's like a new title that was only on the PS4. It wasn't, Crash or Kratos or anything like that. Well, Crash isn't PS4, but you know what I mean. That's a new game, and it just became so iconic. And Last of Us is a kind of newer end of PS3, and it became so iconic. Meanwhile, Xbox is still, with these new studios, they'll probably get some iconic stuff. I personally think Hellblade has a shot at becoming that, but they are still building those IPs to have those iconic releases. So that's one point I wanted to say. And I don't know. I have another point I want to bring in here, but whoever jumps in here first, go for that. Like in terms of the studios.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Suve's got it.
No, you go ahead.
This is one of the categories I can't really combat in terms of like versus like PlayStation. Obviously, PlayStation had a lot of hits during the PS4 generation. For any generation that there was that you needed to win was the social media generation, and this is it. I mean, it'll be an easier transition to PS5. They brought out some cool IPs this generation that people could look forward to for PS5. And we can't really say the same for Xbox. There wasn't no real new IP that made a statement this generation that we could like count on for Series X, Series S generation. We're now kind of more so looking at what are these new studios going to do? What new IP is going to come up? We know we got Halo. We know we got Gears and Forza, but they're kind of they're sort of past their prime. I still love them. I love me some Halo, love me some Gears. But like I said, Hellblade is a newcomer. I mean, they have something with Ori. Sea of Thieves it's something they can do. That's their shining spot. Despite early, reviews, it's been their most consistent, and I would say arguably is their best new IP. But yeah, everything else is an unknown, and that's the most intriguing part about the Xbox coming in is like, what are we gonna see? Because there's not really nothing to anticipate. Like when you were looking for the PS5, you're like,
and we're gonna talk about the launch lineup in a moment.
Yeah,
but I'm just kind of like more so on the legacy side of things.
Yeah,
I do want to like let somebody else jump in here. So like, DB, I find this interesting because you were saying earlier how this is your first year really getting associated with Xbox, and you're learning about all these legacies, playing Gears, playing Halo, especially. I've been noticing that. But in terms of these studios that they got, and just your history with PlayStation, what do you think is kind of like the contrast here?
I genuinely think Microsoft are thinking about like the long term, and when it comes to acquiring these studios, I'm sure there's a lot of ideas being thrown around. And I think, their 10-year plan is to have some really huge hits that will obviously lead into some really big sequels as well. So I have hopes for Xbox, and I believe with the studios that they have and the talent they have, they're going to bring out some serious bangers in the future. Just you watch. I just know it.
Hey,
so,
this year,
Sony
Will of the Wisps and Microsoft Flight Simulator, they're like 9-10 out of 10 games. Like,
exactly. Yeah,
keep going.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So Microsoft, they know what they're doing, and getting these studios is just the beginning. So you just kind of have to be patient and admire what Xbox is doing, and especially with all these subscription services and stuff. Once they have their consumers in there already, and then once these big IPs get announced, people are going to be getting easy access to those games without actually having to pay extra as well.
Which we'll get to, but yeah,
it's those things that you need to think about. Yeah, and PlayStation. They have their exclusives. That's what they're known for. That's why everybody wants to own a PlayStation 5 now. But it's going to be difficult for PlayStation to keep bringing out fresh new IPs because the old ones they'll eventually get.
You never know. You never know.
But so yeah, I have high hopes for both sides of the spectrum. So
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that Xbox, I totally agree with DB that they are playing the long game. They, I think, are going to have a fantastic generation if they stick to their guns and, let their studios that they've bought, if they give them the creative freedom to make the games that they want to make. I think that by the end of this generation, I think Xbox is going to be Xbox gamers are going to be looking back, and they're going to have some great games to have played. I mean, we have Avowed. That's one that we got announced. There's Fable.
Yeah.
There's Everwild. So those are three big ones that I'm already looking forward to. I do think those games are a ways off, but I think Xbox is gearing up for a great generation. I think that the Series X and S are releasing a little early in that timeline, so they don't have a lot to talk about. Then they delayed Halo. That was just a gut punch.
Still feel it, man.
Dude. I got him right here. He's hurting. He's really hurting. Yeah.
So I'm not too worried. I just think it could be a rough first year for Xbox Series X. But we'll see. Maybe Xbox has some stuff up their sleeve that they haven't shown off yet.
I want to transition here because it seems like the way I noticed we weren't really talking much about PlayStation. It's more so like we're trying to like say you're doing good, Xbox. Like keep on going, kid. Like I noticed that's how we all kind of sounded. But let's talk because that is kind of the long game. That is an important factor because these are the first party studios that'll really be utilizing these systems as much as possible. There is an interesting note that's. Smooth, I'm sure you would talk about this long live long day with me, but just there was this whole idea that every first party PlayStation game will be exclusive, and then Xbox was like, we're gonna have one in series, and then but the thing is they both started to waver because if you look at the July event, there was a few of their first party stuff that didn't say Xbox One, and then PlayStation is saying like Horizon, Sackboy, and Spider-Man will be for PS4. We could talk about that, but I kind of want to, because we're just discussing the longevity. Let's talk about the immediacy and the launch lineup that these guys got, because this is where I think, as much as I've been on Xbox, nearly all my life, PlayStation's murdering this. I think so, personally. If Halo Infinite was there, even if it was there, that'd still be great. If it was just amazing seeming, that's awesome. But meanwhile, you got like, I have a list here. I honestly do. At launch, PlayStation had, within like the first couple months. That's what I mean. The first couple months. I don't mean necessarily opening day, but like the first season. You know, we got Astro's Playroom, Demon Souls, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Destruction All-Stars, Sackboy Big Adventure, Godfall, Jet the Far Shore, Bugsnax, Oddworld Soulstorm, The Pathless, and launch window Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And that list is 3 more than Xbox's list, which is only for like a month or two. Yakuza Like a Dragon, The Falconeer, Tetris Effect Connected, Gears Tactics, The Ascent, The Medium, Call of the Sea, and Scorn. And some of those games you can play on PC or the original Xbox One if you want. Which, granted, that's the same for Spider-Man and maybe another of those games I put on PlayStation. But PlayStation's got a much more powerful lineup. I don't know. DB, what are you thinking after being kind of new Xbox and just PlayStation? What do you think?
Well, PlayStation have always been like aggressive when it comes to pushing their hardware. And in doing so, obviously they need the fuel to do that. So their fuel is their exclusive titles and their launch titles. Yeah. And that's going to work. Totally. Trust me. Like I said, I work in GameStop, and we get the majority of the time people asking about PlayStation 5 over Xbox Series X or S.
That's a good insight. As a GameStop employee, that's what you're saying.
Yes. Simply because of these exclusive titles. But like I said earlier, Xbox are more focused on the long term. Yeah. So that's why they have Ultimate Game Pass. Yes, eventually they're going to have exclusive titles as well. And you'll see that in the future. It's going to work in their favor, I think, personally. But right now, when it comes to hardware sales, PlayStation are going to absolutely kill it because of these huge games that are coming out.
Which, dude, you're setting me up for so many things in this next category I want to talk about, but we'll get there in a moment because I'm telling you, I think it's important. I agree. I totally agree. Smooth, what do you think about the launch lineup of these two systems?
I admit that this is the best launch lineup PlayStation has ever had.
Agree.
They're not notorious for having like the best launch lineups, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, it's impressive. It's the reason why I want one. Like, I'm looking forward to Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and it just was recently delayed. But Kenna was the real sleeper that I was looking forward to.
Yeah.
In regards to Xbox, man, like I said, the Halo was really a gut punch, and the lack of a Forza, like a showpiece, that's what I was looking forward to. But when you think about it, we have Gear Tactics finally coming to console, so we got like a legacy IP, and they added some new modes and stuff to it for the Xbox console version. Yes, and then strangely, I'm not a Yakuza guy. I know it's a big on PlayStation, but surprisingly, this is a next gen exclusive, at least timed exclusive.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I only put that on that list because like those are the games I listed. They are not available on the other next gen console. Yeah. They're available on PS4s and 1s, but they're not available on the opposite next gen one. So Yakuza,
yes. Yeah, which is strange. I mean, I'll take it, but yeah, in terms of, I would say, in previous generations, I felt like I've always preferred what Xbox have done. 360, Xbox One, I still think had much better launch lineups than PlayStation this time around, and I think only because of like Spider-Man, is there.
Dude, Ratchet and Clank.
We don't know what
Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank's my favorite PlayStation IP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. We need I just feel like there's an announcement or something that's yet to be revealed on the Xbox side for like launch window, and but judging by what it is today, yes, it's PlayStation all the way. But I'm not mad at what Xbox has. Honestly, my most anticipated games, honestly, for this fall, if like I said, if Halo was still there, that would be it. is honestly Assassin's Creed
Right.
Valhalla.
There's
That's like
the- and
my
there's-
most anticipated game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Third-party stuff you could play on either of them. I was just listing like what's something if
Yeah.
you pick a console, these are the things you can only play on this console. Josh, what do you think of the lineup?
Pretty much echoing what everyone said. You know, I think PlayStation is gonna kind of trounce Xbox in this category. And a big reason is I think Spider-Man is kind of the only game launching that's really a game for everyone.
Yeah.
Like you look at the games you listed for Xbox, those are probably going to be great games, but it's like Gears Tactics is a strategy game. That's kind of a niche thing. Yakuza, you know, that's probably the closest thing on that list or game on that list where it's like it's an open world action adventure, but it is still kind of a like Yakuza is not for everyone. I'm looking forward to the medium.
Yeah.
But I think that game looks really interesting. But Sony, yeah, and Demon Souls, man, that game looks so good. That demo they showed, it's just gorgeous. Now, Demon Souls isn't for everyone either, but it is probably if Bluepoint can do what they do, that game's probably going to be like a 9 out of 10. You know, it's going to be a great game. So I think I'm really looking forward to the game. I pre-ordered Demon Souls, Sackboy, and Spider-Man. So I'm gonna try and get all of those in, but at the same time, like I do want to play some Xbox games. It's gonna be hard to decide what to play when these systems come out.
So Josh, you actually did a perfect transition there to the topic that me and Davey keep teasing at here. You pre-ordered 3 games for the PlayStation. Let's talk about services. So we talk about the hardware, we talk about backwards compatibility, and we talked about the games. Now, how do you access these games? What's certain things that each has? And I want to tell you, I spent some time looking into, like a lot of people probably think, oh, here we go. Let's talk about Game Pass. But hold the phone. I spent some time looking at PlayStation Now, which is pretty cool. And it's actually like, it's the same price as the regular Game Pass, not Ultimate, but with regular PlayStation Now, or just PlayStation Now, you get 800 games to stream, which a lot of people might not like, but 300 of those games you can download. Meanwhile, on Game Pass, they have over 150 games that you all download. So it's like, why is everybody talking about Game Pass when PlayStation's got more than double the library with PlayStation Now? And I think that's because of what DB mentioned here earlier. All of Xbox's, like Xbox Game Studios games, launches day 1 on that system. And how Josh was just saying here, he pre-ordered 3 games for PlayStation. That was probably $180. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, that
that.
whole year, that's 2 years of potentially Game Pass, you know? Well, okay, not 2 years. It's a bit over a year, but that's something. So the way I kind of categorize this is PlayStation Now is it's $60 annually, by the way. So it's even cheaper than Game Pass too. So I think people, you know, take a look at PlayStation Now. It's all not all about Game Pass, even though they just got EA Play, which is insane to add more value to that. But I think this is kind of like a PlayStation Now, the bigger and wider catalog for cheaper, and Game Pass is the smaller but much more current catalog for maybe a bit more. Not to mention there's like the streaming and stuff, and there's other things here. But first off, the PlayStation Plus collection that got announced too, which might be Sony trying to like make a move against Game Pass maybe. And I think it's an awesome one. If that's just included in the base thing, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody like me that doesn't have a PlayStation. So it's like if I went to PS5, I have access to all these great PS4 games. So there's good sides on both. I just want to defend both of them. But DB, what do you think about this? Because I feel like you've been teasing at this the most through this whole thing. How have you been playing these games?
No, I honestly, like, when I was surprised when they added that extra feature to PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't think PlayStation would do that. But you can tell they're obviously threatened by Ultimate Game Pass. So they wanted that somewhat of a trump card. It's not going to be as good as Ultimate Game Pass, but look, it's a start. And I genuinely think it's going to go to a good direction. And that's why it's always healthy to have this competition, because they learn from each other. And they're always trying to one-up each other.
And we benefit.
And it's yeah, exactly. It's a win-win for all of us gamers, you know? So where Sony is going, I like what they're doing, and I hope they just improve on that. And like you said, with Xbox, they're more current with their Game Pass and stuff. And hey, in the future, PlayStation might be as well. So, the whole PlayStation Now thing, I tried that when it was new. It wasn't great. But as you said, now it's much better than what I remember. So maybe they'll combine PlayStation Now with PlayStation Plus in the future and make it its own thing.
Yeah.
It'll be really cool to see what they'll do in the next year, maybe 2 years.
But so Josh, I want to go to you here for a moment. You mentioned how you pre-ordered those 3 games, and DB's mentioning maybe some point in the future they have them joined together. But for now, how is it feeling buying all these games?
It's expensive. I mean, like, I spent a lot of money yesterday, and if PlayStation had something like Game Pass, or if they had something exactly like Game Pass, yeah, I wouldn't have had to have pre-ordered those. Now, I do collect physical games,
yes.
so like I'm a bit of a different case. But if I was on a budget that I just couldn't afford that, and which a ton of people are, then it is kind of a bummer. And let me put it this way. A PlayStation 5 costs way more than $500 because you have to buy the first party games, and you could literally buy a Xbox Series S and not spend another dime, and you'd be able to play every single Xbox first party game. Yeah, okay, yeah, pay for Game Pass, but still, that's like, and you get your first month for like a buck.
That's taxes on a game.
That's taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, Xbox just wins in the value category, and this is how, with Game Pass. And I think you were right, Tony, that the reason that Xbox Game Pass gets so much attention is because it is, listen to what the games we're talking about in this discussion. It's Spider-Man, it's Demon Souls, it's Sackboy and Ratchet and Clank. Those are the games that would be in a PlayStation version of Game Pass if they had it.
Yeah,
so that's why Game Pass gets all the attention. But I'm glad you brought up PlayStation Now, because it is a good service. If you haven't played, a lot, well, even if you have played a lot of PlayStation games, it's still got a ton of stuff on there. So,
just not too much new. I was looking at the catalog, and I just didn't see any of like the big new releases. And if they are added on there, they're very temporary, I noticed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Smooth. I'm curious on your thoughts on this, and if you want to wiggle in EA Play, wiggling its way into Game Pass.
Yeah, dude. EA Play was a big move. I even teased it like I want to say back in August. I was like, yo, what if you get access to Madden and FIFA by subscribing to Game Pass? Like, it was a tweet that I put out. It adds value because you got to think about it. It's like, it's an awesome play because right at launch, the next gen versions of those games are available, and you have EA Play. They're going to go, if they won't be in a vault, but you get that 10-hour trial.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 10 hours. I'm not going to buy Madden, but I'll play 10 hours of it.
I forgot about that.
So, so that was like a big deal. But when you think of their non-sports titles, there's a lot of games in EA Play, especially if you're on Xbox or PC, because of backwards compatibility. Again, it's a whole lot of content in there, and then you got those non-sports titles that EA published. The Star Wars game that was it Jedi Fallen Order. It was like one of my favorite games last year. That's in there, so that's and it does not change the price. So let me tell you about like my next gen plans. If PlayStation, like if I get a hold of a PlayStation, it's going to be the most expensive purchase I have to do because I have to buy a game. All right. So I'm going to buy PlayStation. I'm going to buy Spider-Man. I never intended on buying. Excuse me. I intended on buying one game on Xbox, and that was Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Right.
I already have a Game Pass Ultimate account, so a lot of the games that I'm going to be exploring on Xbox's fall they're going to be in Game Pass. And remember, they're remastering. They're doing. I call them remasters, but they're the free optimizations for Forza Horizon, Gears 5, Sea of Thieves.
And that's a note I didn't touch.
I'm going to look at those games.
Xbox has been a bit more, but they're both doing free upgrades. But Xbox has been kind of boasting it a little bit more, I feel like. kind of make a stand for it.
Yeah. I feel like Xbox with their announcement like kind of like pushed a lot of publishers' hand because if they like coming out and offering like free upgrades, even it actually helped multi-plats upgrades because you couldn't offer a free upgrade on Xbox without offering a free upgrade on PlayStation. That would have been like so unfair.
Yeah. So I think I do kind of want to throw and here's the thing. PlayStation Now, it's like I said, cheaper, bigger catalog. Game Pass, well, it depends. If it depends on which Game Pass you get. If you get Ultimate, maybe more, just a lot more current stuff. And I didn't even talk about xCloud, but I love the idea of xCloud. I think it's freaking cool. And that's included if you get Ultimate as well. But if you just compare their like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live Gold, that Plus collection kind of wipes the floor with gold. If you have neither of them. If for some reason you have neither PlayStation Now or Game Pass, then that's a pretty dang good move from PlayStation. But that's a lot of good stuff. But I want to hit this next category. So let us discuss kind of overall packaging. So this category is going to be kind of just wiggling it all together. Now that you know everything, now that you know the hardware, you know the backwards compatibility, you know the games, and you know the services. I think people can kind of bundle this together because what we know about the prices, I'm sure anybody watching this, they're educated somewhat. I think they know. But just quick reminder, there's two very different strategies going on. And I think it's kind of neat because if you're on the middle, you have a lot of great options. At the bottom level, you have Xbox because you have the Series S at $300, the cheapest way to get into next gen, and ignoring Game Pass and all that stuff. Then next level up, you have the digital PS5, which is a much beefier system than the Series S because the Series S, it's kind of like that. Like if you don't have a 4K TV, which a lot of people don't, this might be the best option for you, maybe. But if you do want the PS5 games and stuff, then here's the digital if you don't care about physical copies. Me and Josh probably wouldn't be caught dead with that system. Maybe. And then, but at the top option, you have both the Series X and PS5 with the disc drive. So it's kind of neat how there's those different options. The big thing I think is interesting, though, is that the Xbox One's Xbox All Access. PlayStation doesn't have this yet. That's the neat thing in my opinion. If you're new to PlayStation, if you get PlayStation Plus, you're going to get a lot of like classic games. If you get an Xbox for the first time, do it through All Access because that's going to give you 2 years of Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Live, which includes xCloud and all these games, blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to these overall packages, guys, I want to know kind of what you think is the big value, maybe not of necessarily each, but like what kind of stands out to you as potentially the most appealing for certain folks. Josh, I'll start with you here. So what do you think of these values and just kind of their bundles and packaging and what kind of might appeal?
Well, I think they've both done a good job. I think like for the way I described this yesterday, I recorded my podcast yesterday. We talked about this, and the way I brought it up there was like, if I were to buy PlayStation, I feel like has the stuff that I would miss out on if I didn't get it. Like if I didn't get a PlayStation, I'd feel like I was missing out on some experiences because they have those exclusive games that, yes, I can get them on my PS4. So that's actually really important to bring up. But if I want that exclusive, like next gen experience, I feel like at least on launch, I can only get that on PlayStation. So that's the value I'm getting from PlayStation. Yeah. But for Xbox, the value that I'm getting is, you mentioned All Access. Like I also thought of this, like how many PlayStation 5 like hardcore gamers who, spend a lot of their disposable income on gaming. They're like dedicated to getting a PlayStation 5, but now they're like, well, for only $25 a month, I could also get an Xbox.
Yeah. Totally.
And, like that's great. So I wonder how many gamers will do that the value of Xbox is the value, just how much you get for how little you spend compared to a PlayStation 5. And I think that's, again, like the controller thing is a great example. You only have to, you don't have to buy an extra controller. You just get, if you have an Xbox, you're good to go on that front. So yeah, I think just the amount you get for the little amount of money you spend on Xbox, I think is great. Xbox has done a great job of just positioning themselves to be such a great value. Dollar-wise.
So one, it sounds, at least my interpretation here is like, one, it sounds like you're gonna, you feel like you're gonna miss out on the games, and the other one, I could save a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and not just save a lot of money, but like, if you're okay missing out on those games,
Sure.
or Xbox is your ecosystem, or I don't know, for whatever reason you're like, I'm gonna go with Xbox. If you do that, you're gonna plug that thing in, and if you get Game Pass, you're going to have so much stuff to play, more stuff to play than you will ever have time for, and again, with PlayStation, you do have PlayStation Now. I don't want to backtrack onto the last topic, but I do think that with Xbox, they've just done a great job, and maybe it's just the marketing, because again, PlayStation does have PlayStation Now, but for some reason, I feel like if you get an Xbox and that's your system, you've got so much stuff to play.
Smooth.
Not exclusives.
Not right.
Well, I shouldn't say not exclusives.
Some.
Not next gen launch exclusives.
Not launch. There was an interesting
That's where they
tweet
lack.
though that they put out today. They're like, "Hey, look, we got more next gen exclusives than PlayStation." I want to fact check that. I found that was interesting. Smooth.
I saw that tweet.
What do you think of these kind of packaging deals? What maybe seems most appealing to you and why? Just share your thoughts. 2 minutes.
Dude, I think the way I think about it is I think about all the subscriptions that I'm paying for in terms of like movies, like Hulu, Netflix, Apple Music, and all that stuff. And I play more games than I watch movies. I play more games than I listen to music. And all those subscriptions together cost more than what I would be paying for an Xbox Series S and Game Pass. And it's like, that is like a no-brainer. Like it's crazy attractive. And I always said, when they did the original All Access, like they did that test run like through Dell, like credit. I was like, dude, this would be more successful if they did this like for every retailer, because nobody's going to be able to do this. And so the fact that they're rolling it out worldwide this fall with Best Buy, Amazon, Target, Walmart, like you got people going into stores who aren't going to be able to pick up a PlayStation because they're in short supply. And especially if they are going to be able to pick up a PlayStation, it won't be the $300 one because they purposely put that on short supply. So you have this $300. I mean, I said 300, 400. You have this $300 Series X. You have this a Series S, and you got this $500 Series X. And then you're going to have the number you're probably not going to see $299 and $499. You're going to see $25, $24.99 and $34.99.
If you have good credit.
Like that right there is if you have and if you have good credit, but that's going to get somebody to the line. And it becomes an impulse. You ever go to like maybe I'm a fool, but like you buy a bunch of stuff. There's a couple times like I bought like a TV from like Best Buy.
No, I get. You don't even need to tell me. I get what you mean. You just see something and it's like this is at this right now. It's like
yeah. So and I think this is awesome because it's never been done before.
Sure.
Like, so we don't know what's going to happen. It works now with our cell phones. Everybody's doing it with their cell phones.
I'm really curious to see how it works. I want to get DB in here though. So DB. What do you think about each of these packages? And I'm curious if you could wiggle in thoughts about like PlayStation kind of having a middle ground, because that's what I feel like. Because you got the Series S being the weakest one of the bunch, and then the Series X like just a bit maybe most powerful. But then here's PlayStation with the good middle ground of a digital model that's smack middle pricing, and it's stronger than the Series S. So I don't know if you want to wiggle that in too, but just share your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, initially when they first announced the digital version, I wasn't expecting it. Obviously, there was rumors around about PlayStation 5 Pro going around, but that was obviously false or whatever. But once I seen it, I got a bit of a shock, but it was also understandable as well because, a lot of, especially the younger generation, couldn't care less about physical copies. So digital is probably the best way to go. And I think it was very bold of them to actually have it $100 cheaper than the top of the range one, because the only difference is the disc
which
drive.
costs like
That's
$30 to put in, maybe.
Yeah. So again, that's PlayStation being aggressive once again, just to kind of give that little one over on Xbox, because you have the Xbox Series S, which is a lower powered version of the Xbox Series X. And people are going to see that and are going to know that, and it's kind of slightly put them off of that. But with PlayStation, you have the same console basically,
same
whether it's physical or not. Yeah, and I think that's why PlayStation have that little trump card. But when it comes to the all access and stuff like that, I think that's more consumer friendly. And I think when it comes to parents at Christmas time, that's something that they can definitely afford and they can definitely look into, and they probably have no problem in doing so. And then they see the Ultimate Game Pass and they're like, geez, I don't actually have to spend a whole lot this Christmas to get my kids all these games and these great consoles, But with PlayStation, you have to splash out loads of money over Christmas, and you can only have one, maybe two games that day, So there's positives and negatives on both sides, but when it comes to consumer friendly, Xbox all the way.
Yeah, and so to just get my word in here, I love that. I have some people that are like, I can't wait to see PlayStation 5 undercut Xbox or whatever. I'm just like, what if there's a world where it's basically equal, Because that's true. They have their top boxes at the same price. And yeah, Xbox has the cheapest box, but for $100 more, you get a system that's a lot beefier. So it's kind of like they both have equal values, just in different forms. And that's, to me, kind of like, to get into the closing of this, is there really is different values here. So, somebody could maybe think about getting an Xbox, but if you don't get it with Game Pass, you're missing so much potential with it. Meanwhile, if you go for PlayStation and only get PlayStation Now and stuff, then you can play a lot of old games, but there's so many different combinations here, is what I'm getting at. There's the most optimal way to experience a system. But my final thought I want to close with here is just like what you each individually are going for. And this is where we get really personal, and I don't want anybody to defend themselves, but just simply in like a minute or two, say what appeals to you most. I want to start here and just say it's hard for me because I just want to save money, But I think the PlayStation games are so much more appealing, personally. I think they look great. But I like saving money. And that's kind of the main reason Series X has me. If Game Pass didn't exist, I'd honestly get a PlayStation hands down because I want VR. I don't know why Xbox doesn't do VR. That's the only thing. If PlayStation didn't have VR, I would easily go Xbox. But just because they have VR, I'm like, damn it. Just because I like to save money, and I also want to like get the most top-notch experience, I'm going to invest in a nice TV as well. I'm going Series X. That's me. Smooth, why don't you kick us off here? What is your value? What's your console and what's your value if you had to pick one?
Well, it should be pretty easy, but it's Series X. For sure. I just bought me a LG CX, so I'm going to be pairing that bad boy there. I just they had it on sale, had to go get that. But I'm going to do you one more. I'm also going to get the Series S. What? And I'm going to do the Series. Yes. I know it sounds. The reason why is because, like you said, you want to get the top of the line product, and you want to. You said you're going to be looking at getting a new TV. I did the same thing, and the TV market is more. It's more appealing than the monitor market right now, because there's not really monitors that you can get to fully embrace Series X and PS5 right now. And you can cap them at 60 hertz, but these consoles are doing 120 frames in now. So to get the most out of my Series X, I'm pairing it with 4K, capable TV that has HDR, Dolby Vision, and like
and you put the Series
capable
S
of
on your
120
monitor.
hertz. And my Series S is going on my monitor for streaming. Yeah, for streaming purposes only.
Okay.
Like, I'll just stream, because when you stream, maybe 1-2 games at a time. I don't need all that fidelity. So if I'm just streaming.
But you tried to get the PS5 last night. So But you say Series X, so in particular, what were you saying?
In a perfect world, I would love to have all three of them. Sure. The reason why I tried to get the PS5 because the pre-orders came out first. If this that was the kind of it was like, oh, I got to try to get one in there. So like I'm fortunate where I can afford all the consoles, but the thing is, what's keeping me from getting a PS5 is not really money, it's availability and scalpers. So that's the thing. So right now I'm on the point where I don't think, was it September 18th right now? I don't think I'll be able to get a PS5 by the time the Xbox pre-orders goes live. I plan to by September 22nd to have a Series S and a Series X pre-order. And if I don't get a PlayStation 5 at launch, I would be totally content because the console I'm going for is the Xbox. So if I get a PlayStation 5, it'll be a bonus, but the Series X is what I'm really targeting.
Josh, what do you think about, like, what was the most appealing to you and why? A specific model. I mean, if you have one, you're probably getting two like everybody else here except for me. But what was?
Yeah, well, definitely then the pregnant version of, I've heard people call it, of the PS5 is definitely for me. And you know, I bought a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One both day one, and I gave them both a fair shake. But you know, PlayStation's games just speak more to me. Yeah. As a gamer, so that's why I kind of leaned more towards PlayStation this generation, but I'm going to do the same thing this generation. I'm going to buy both, and I'm going to give them both a fair shake, and I really hope that Xbox can, you know, hit it out of the park with some of their first-party games, and, you know, I hope that in a couple years, you know, I can look back and say that I played both just as much because they both had games that spoke to me, you know, and I think that's possible. But on day one, yeah, I'm definitely... If I had to choose, it would be PlayStation. You know, I'm embedded in that ecosystem. I'm also I'm kind of like not like a trophy hunter, but I like seeing my trophies, you know, come in when I play. And so for those reasons, yeah, PlayStation is where I'll be camped on day one. But you know, I'm going to be really curious to play like Cyberpunk. We didn't talk much about third-party games, but like, I'm going to be firing up. I might buy Cyberpunk for both Xbox and PS5 because I want to see what it looks like on both. You know, I want to like compare the systems and stuff. We'll see how much extra cash I have when these things finally launch. I might be just depleted. And the other thing I was going to say, Tony, is like, man, if you get an Xbox, you could get an Oculus too. Those things start at $300, which is not bad.
Hold on.
Go VR. Do
Oculus run on Xboxes?
No, but the Quest is like its own. It's like a standalone thing. You know, you don't need to hook it up to a console. You can't hook it up to a console. Okay, but I was going to say, if you feel like you're missing out on,
I just want something that's VR, like just on the most beefy system. But my PC could probably do VR. Yeah. But I just love console gaming.
Yeah.
But I hear you about like the games. DB, you recently entered the Xbox ecosystem. What if you had to have one console? What would it be and why?
Well, there's a lot of things that have to come into factor. Obviously, the major one is nostalgia for me. And I think it's the same for everyone. A lot of people, that's where biased opinions come from as well. Yeah. It's what you grew up with, and PlayStation was always there. And of course, I've spoke about this many times on the channel. Xbox was just, you know, something that came out of nowhere. And I couldn't accept that for a while because I was a huge PlayStation fanboy. So when you take those things into account, like nostalgia and the games that you grow up with, and especially with the IPs that PlayStation hold on to as well, and you grow up with those IPs and they're still going on, you can't help yourself but be drawn to that platform, no matter what. Yeah. And like I said, I've been heavily into the Xbox world for the last 7-8 months now, and I've loved it, absolutely adored it. And I will be getting both consoles for sure. But if I have to take nostalgia into account, what my friends played, the stuff that I grew up with, all the memories, of course I'm going to be steering towards PlayStation if I had to choose. Yeah. But like I said, I'm getting both consoles because I fucking love all the games, man. All of them.
I you know, if somebody just bluntly asked me like, okay, like you got to tell me right now, which one do I get? I'm just like, dude, they have really different values. Like that's what I love right now. There's not just like, I'm sure some might have came to the stream like, come on, tell him this console's so much better. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, there's really great values on each system that, like, it's for you to pick and choose. If you want great, well, soon Xbox, soon, but if you want basically a more reliable resume, let's just put it that way, with like some great games coming, then yeah, get a PlayStation 5 if you got the money to buy them at launch or whatever. If you want to save money and get day one things and get the beefy system, then get the Series X. Or if you want to save money, get the Series S and just blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so many various like customization ways, and that's what I particularly really love about this gen. There is no Kinect forced on any box. But that's our show, guys. I think this was a fantastic conversation, and
Yeah, good stuff.
We went a bit over an hour, and there's so much more to say, but I appreciate all of your time. This was so good. This actually helped me, like I said earlier, like just to kind of solidify what the values of each of them are, and just thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.
No problem, dude.
Yeah. So everybody that's watching, please go to the description. Check them out. Kid Smooth, Quest Mode, and DB Geek. They're awesome folks. I brought them on here for a reason. And thank you all so much for watching. And don't forget, be geek, be proud, be awesome. See you.